Welcome back. Now, over the last 6 years, the Industrial Gas Users Association of Southern Africa has warned the government about a looming crisis in the gas industry. The warning has fallen on deaf ears, and now the country only has about 4 months to act to avoid a day zero of a gas supply. This as Sasol will stop providing natural gas to the country as of 2026 from Mozambique under an existing contract. Jaco Human, who's Executive Director of the Industrial Gas Users Association of Southern Africa, joins us with more insights on this impending crisis. Jaco, thank you for your time and good afternoon to you.
You're welcome.
All right, Jaco, 4 months. 4 months is not a long time, but this obviously sounds like a problem that we could foresee. Let's talk about the crisis that we find ourselves on the horizon with now.
Correct. So this is all on the back of a dwindling gas resource, which South Africa has been dependent on for the last 20 years or so. And to that extent, Sasol has announced some months ago officially that they're exiting this market and that whatever remaining gas there is will be for their own consumption. So industry, which is deeply reliant on gas energy in terms of its processes, the way it's set up, needs to find an urgent alternative. Now, nothing of this is new. You know, we have been in conversations with government for the last 5-6 years with various stakeholders around the solution. But now it is now real. And there is literally a very short period, a window period, for the country to make a decision and commit to a solution before the cutoff in June 2026. The reason why there's this 2-year gap is, of course, lots of infrastructure needs to be developed. So we are running out of time, and we refer to it as the gas cliff, and beyond that, the dead zone. And what we currently see is a real dead zone.
I must ask you, Jaco, when we speak of the fact that we've got 4 months, if we're very honest with ourselves as South Africans, 4 months is never a long time for us to get much right. So as we speak about the gas cliff, as we speak about the dead zone here, conversations with the government at this point, where are they?
So it's twofold. The solution is actually based on the amount of gas we can aggregate as South Africa, in order to make the investments in infrastructure and all these required pipelines feasible. Now, if you only take the industrial demand, that portion which Sasol will not be supplying in future, that accounts to about 40 or 50 petajoules of gas. Now, it is not sufficient. We need more in order to bank these projects feasibly. Now, this is where government has to play a critical role, and the ask from government is not extensive, and we simply refer to it as a requirement for them to switch on the landing lights. And the landing lights for this solution sits in the gas to power decisions and policies of government. They have recently announced significant programs in this space, but we're simply saying that you have to consider the geographic location of these power stations in future, and other electricity procurement directly from Mozambique off gas, in order to fill the pot, for gas in order to make these projects feasible and bankable by the developers and private investors.
And like you mentioned, Jaco, we have actually expressed as a country our desire to embrace more gas. So what is then so hard about committing so that we can get the infrastructure going, so that we can get the gas on time?
Yeah, I think it's a lack of cohesive and coherent policy. I mean, there is significant gas demand. It far outstrips supply. You're absolutely right. I mean, whether it's for industrial purposes, whether it's for power generation purposes, but the whole policy and the cohesiveness around the infrastructure developments in order to meet this demand for gas is simply lacking. We're also sitting in South Africa with significant upstream gas resources available today. All right, but we're failing at a policy level to advance on these opportunities.
And let's also talk about private sector here. Of course, I assume that you've managed to aggregate the demand for the private sector there. They're unable to take up some of this demand that we need to make sure that all of this is feasible?
So the demand level, as I said, from industry is sizable, but it is not the sweet spot for these developments. And What we're asking government is simply we're not asking government to invest and make big capital commitments and investments in infrastructure. We're simply saying that in line with your power policy, make the right call where this will fill the pot again. So the ask, it's actually a very light ask. It's around gas volume, but also critically is the interlinkage between two pipelines in order to provide KwaZulu-Natal with the necessary energy security. Government owns both those pipelines, and we have to facilitate a very critical piece of pipeline connection to give KwaZulu-Natal that security. And we're struggling to get the message across, and we have been over the last 6 years, been unable to do that.
And then I must ask you, Jaco, if we're looking at escalating this at all, of course, you're speaking to the media at this point, but this does sound like an emergency. It also sounds like something that we should all be paying attention to before we find ourselves in another crisis, which I don't think we can afford as an economy anymore. I don't think we can afford a single crisis here. More partnership in the private sector, getting the voices of other organized businesses to come together and really amplify the voice here before we reach crisis levels.
Correct. I mean, there's lots at stake. I mean, we're talking literally here about bread and butter issues right through to the beverage cans and products that we use on a daily basis. So it's cross-sectoral, the mining, chemicals, construction, FMCG industries, and the sector employs about 65,000 people, contributes upwards of about 300 billion rand a year to the South African economy, and it is significant. If there's no energy, that falls away immediately. Now, getting together, there is a process underway, coordinated by the DTIC, but it's slow going. Stakeholders are in the room. We're not sure whether these are the ultimate decision makers within government, but it certainly. We believe that the Ministry of Electricity is also aware of these issues. The DMRE are aware of these issues. The DTIC, Treasury, Eskom. So it is the decision making around this ultimately which we need to focus on.
Well, I do hope to speak to you in the next 4 months, and I hope that when I do, we have some good news. Thank you for speaking to us today and for amplifying this issue. That was Jaco Human. He's Executive Director of the Industrial Gas Users Association of Southern Africa.